Welcome back, players. I'm Jack with 36Cancel, and this is Coco the Weiss Cat. And are you players ready for one Drago Buster of a set? No, I'm not talking about Millen from Slime 2. Today, we're talking about Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. Widely debated as to whether or not it would ever see English, Bushiroad broke all expectations and announced that Dragon Maid would be hitting Western shores this November 2022. This is especially impressive as Dragon Maid, being extremely popular and highly iconic, has a reputation for being exceptionally difficult to license for any figures, shows, or collaborations. This goes double for anything involving the Dragon Maid anime. So what did Bushiroad do when they made this set? Well, in a rare move, they used the manga art for the entire set. And let me tell you, the manga art for Dragon Maid has some bangers, as does the set itself. So without further ado, let's talk some shop. Now, for those of you living under a rock, Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid is a manga and now an extremely popular anime with multiple seasons. Miss Kobayashi herself, a single, drunkard office worker just trying to make it in modern Japan, one fateful night takes an intoxicated walk home and meets a real, bona fide dragon with a fatal wound from a sword. In her drunken state, Kobayashi, instead of questioning everything she knows, pulls out the sword which would have killed the dragon if left be, and goes home, refusing to elaborate further. In what can only be called a foregone conclusion to these strange events, this dragon takes on a human form, introducing herself as Toru, and pledges herself to be Miss Kobayashi's sex slave, live-in maid. In the following days, it's revealed that not only are dragons closer to our world than we could ever have imagined, but there are several right in the vicinity of Kobayashi herself and her new lesbian live-in. So we're introduced to a cast of dragons and their masters, like Elma, who tries to follow into Kobayashi's office life to support her insatiable sweet tooth, Quetzalcoatl, the cradle-robbing Shotokan, the awkward misfit Opie, and of course, Kana, the absolutely infamous, actually she's a 900-year-old dragon girl, so... Anyway, for how questionable the show sounds based on the cast, it's probably one of the most wholesome slice-of-life shows to date, and to this day, gives dragon weebs the warm and fuzzies. So with the basics out of the way, let's talk about what this set looks like when you boil all of this strangeness down to the card game. First off, the set is 4 colors with a bit of an odd mix in terms of character distribution. Elma and Lukoa, or Quetzalcoatl, are exclusively in blue and do have some standalone stuff, but not too much. Elma does kind of get her own thing, but it's more of a meme than anything. Fafnir also has kind of an 8-bar setup in green, though he doesn't have a level 1 combo. Kobayashi herself is exclusively in yellow, and again, mostly provides a support role, with one exception in blue and green each. The big 3 that Dragon Maid features as main characters to build around are Toru, Ilulu, and Kana, with Toru being green and yellow to synergize with Kobayashi, Kana being red and yellow, synergizing with just about anything, and Ilulu being red and green with a lot of her own kits and combos. Granted, these color schemes are slightly skewed in the trial deck, with Ilulu and Lukoa appearing in yellow, and Elma and Kobayashi appearing in green. Don't ask me. Anyway, it's a bit of an odd mix in terms of colors and kits, but since the set is universally traded, it means you can mix just about anything with everything, and the set being universally traded is a great place to start on our set mechanics graphic. One thing that you'll notice on this graphic right away is the set does not have a standby trigger, though Irulu does have a combo that gives the set a pseudo standby ability. That said, it does have other things we'd like to see, like on-attack advantage, stock swapping, free-freshing, compression hate, good early plays, and a lot of ways to finish off your opponent, whether through pinpoint finishes or classic big dick damage. It also has a rather interesting defensive package. Another thing to mention is the resonate mechanic. Dragon Maid is actually a set with a lot of resonate abilities, meaning that if you play one card, you'll play its partner cards so that you can resonate and get extra abilities. Finally, there are definitely things the set does not offer. For one, it doesn't get very big very fast, and it doesn't really create insurmountable walls. It's also not a hate-heavy set, and while it does have some anti-damage counters, it doesn't have any punish cards for burn, standby, or healing. And finally, one department the set does lack a bit in is hand filtering. While it's not completely without cards that help you on this front, it doesn't have nearly as many as other modern Weiss sets. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the stuff that people actually care about, the shiny cards. Dragon Maid is yet another set that completely lacks regular SPs, but another odd thing is that it also lacks conventional SRs and triple rares. Instead, Dragon Maid has its own set-unique Dragon Maid rares, which are shiny versions of certain characters and climaxes, some with gold foiling pattern on the background. It also has overframe rares of some characters. That said, it does feature SSPs, including a trial deck SSP. The trial deck does not feature MDRs, but does go back to the regular SRs and triple rares for shiny versions of certain cards. Definitely a more random mix of shiny stuff, but it leaves no shortage of beautiful Dragon Maid cards to collect. Now with all the basics out of the way, it's time once again to let the cards speak for themselves. And speak they do with this incredible manga art. And as a general reminder, these cards do not have official translations as of yet, and I apologize for any inaccuracies that occur as a result of differences that come up between the official ones we may get later, and the names and abilities of these cards that may not be accurately worded right now. That said, of course, I'll do my best. So let's kick things off with one of the best cards in the set, if not the best objectively speaking, Poolside Temptation Toru from the trial deck. Base 3500, runs to center, and gives all your opponent's characters Encore 2. Most cards that sit at 3500 with this profile have some nonsense limitation about hand size or other characters, but not Toru. A demerit that no one cares about at all replaces that, and of course, you get to distract your opponent for no cost at all. But be careful, because you're probably not immune from that either. But it does mean you can field as many of these as you want without having to worry about power loss. Now moving along to other good things in yellow, we have Trusting Relationship Kobayashi. If you have a 2/1 Toru, all your other characters get plus 1k power. And if you have 4 or more other characters, you can rest her to draw and then pitch a card. Finally, she's a tap self-salvaging Brainstormer. So she's packing a lot of useful abilities here, including being a resonate target for an early play Toru. Anyway, the set has some other interesting Brainstormers with utility abilities, like this Kana that lets you top check on play and is a tap self-salvage, or this Ilu, which is a tap self-search that on play lets you choose a character to become immune to auto-reverse effect for the turn. Fafnir in his own kit also gets a tap 2 searching Brainstormer that gives characters in front of it lane lock, which is especially toxic. There's also an interesting level 0 climax combo to talk about, Ilu Go-Go Chorguns. When you play her, if you have 2 or more other characters, you can draw and discard. Then, with her climax combo, which is a stock soul, at the end of her attack, if you have 6 or less cards in hand, you can pay 1 and sacrifice a character. If you do, choose a character in your hand equal to your level +1 or lower and put it on the stage rested. Now this is obviously worse than run-of-the-mill standby, as it's pretty much a -2 instead of a +1 that you do have to pay for. However, with 3 of these Ilus, you can actually pseudo standby 3 times in a single turn, which is kind of memes. Moving on at 0, Dragon Maid has its fair share of fairly generic coin flips, drop searchers, drop salvagers, and some top checkers. However, none of them really carry profiles that make them stand out above the crowd. If you're building Dragon Maid at 0, you're basically running 4 Booba Toru, the Brainstormer that fits your deck, and fill in the blank from there. So let's move on to level 1. And there are a lot of combos to choose from. First, let's look to the trial deck for Toru's Minami Nita style reverse combo. Base 4500, she gets plus 2k on your turn, and with her choice climax, on reverse, you top check 4 for a character, and then give another character plus 2k for the turn. This is a very solid on reverse combo because if you win one lane, it helps you win others a lot easier. And she gets to 7500 with the climax, which is a solid number that can contend with most front row characters. Overall, a solid choice for any deck. Toru also has a bar climax in the main set in green. Base 3500, she gets plus 2k if you're playing the game, and on attack with her climax, you top check 3 and add a card. That's right, just a card. What other combo do you know that lets you, on attack, just add whatever you want to your hand? While she doesn't bring much else to the table, the combo itself has a lot of potential to run any deck. But she's not the only choice, because Kana in red gives us something pretty unique. Base 4k, she gets plus 2k on your turn. When you reverse a battle opponent, if you have the gate climax in your zone, perform the following 2 effects. Choose up to 1 character in your waiting room and return it to your hand, and choose up to 1 of your opponent's level 1 or higher characters, put it into the waiting room, and then your opponent chooses a character whose level is X or lower to replace them from the waiting room, where X is the original character's level -1. So effectively, if you choose a level 1, your opponent can choose a level 0 to put in its place, or choose a level 2 to replace a level 3, etc. And that's fucking brutal. If you find one reverse, you can just start de-leveling your opponent's entire board, including their back row. This is an exceptionally powerful level 1 combo that also happens to salvage on reverse, because, you know, why wouldn't it? Now keep in mind, you do need to hit a reverse for this to work, and if you lay this down when your opponent is still at 0, it does lose a lot of potential hurt. But make no mistake, this can single-handedly tear apart an entire stage. Unless your opponent can field 7k plus characters in all of their lanes, it's hard to stop too. Even barring hand encore, it's not a favorable exchange. So yeah, this Kana is scary for sure. She also has a support card, Kana Chorogan Breath. She gives all of your other characters plus 500 power, and when you play her, you can pitch a character and search for the Kana combo. In addition, you can rest her and choose one of the Kana combo characters to get plus 1k and plus 1 soul for the turn. Aside from these, at level 1, Dragon Maid offers some other good tech, like a 1/0 Toru that bonds with a Kobayashi Brainstormer, and a 1/0 event that searches for a climax. Lukoa also has a 1/1 Adachi bottom decker, and Elma has her own blue meme deck event combo shenanigans. And finally, blue also has a 1/0 1500 backup. You can pay 2 and heal when you use the counter effect. However, not getting into all that, this is a great time to transition into level 2. Now aside from some good stuff like the 2/1 Kobayashi Free Fresh, level 2 is also host to some strange cards. We have a 2/1 Kana Brainstormer that salvages on hit, but does not tap or have you discard, making it the only repeatable plusing Brainstormer in English. Level 2 Dragon Maid also has 2 very interesting cards that put level 3s on the board. First, in blue, we have Shota Magical Talent. He's a level assist with a combo that if you pitch 2 cards and pay 1 when you play the climax, you can search your deck for level 3 Lukoa and put her on any position of the stage. And she happens to be blue's big finisher, so that's a pretty big ability. Failed summoning happens to be the climax name, which is pretty fitting, though I'd hardly call it a failure. Anyway, the other level 2 I'm talking about actually changes. This is a 2/1 Kana that on play lets you pitch a card and search your deck for an event called Whole Body Mischief. Then at the start of your climax phase, you can pay 1 and pitch 2 characters and return this to your hand. If you do, choose a Kana level 3 in your waiting room and put it on the stage in the slot she was in, and until the end of your opponent's next turn, she cannot be targeted by your opponent's effects. And we'll get to this level 3 package in a moment, but first we need to talk about this level 2 Toru combo. At the start of your attack phase, you can put her climax combo in the waiting room, top check 3, add all characters, and then put the top card of your deck under it as a marker. Then each time one of your characters attacks, you can give it +1k and +x soul, where x is a number you declare that is less than or equal to the number of markers she has, which cannot be negative. It's like a global 1k on your turn that's also a +3 and some soul manipulation if you play the combo. Notably, it doesn't have to be in your center stage, but you also can't do anything funny with it or stack it since you have to sacrifice the climax. And by the way, this is the 2/1 Toru that the Brainstormer needs to see to give everything +1k. It's a bit strange, but that said, it's high time we move to level 3. And I think we should start with the Kana we mentioned before. Pool Weather Swimsuit Kana, if you have 4 or more experience, gets +1k power, hand on core, and gives the character facing her -1 soul. When she attacks, if you have the gate climax in your climax zone, you can pitch a card and return that same event, Whole Body Mischief, from your waiting room to your hand, and then until the end of your opponent's next turn, she gets +2k and gives the character facing her -1 soul. So to summarize, if you do the full combo and change into her, she gets +3k, making her 13k, gives her battle opponent -2 soul, has hand on core, and can be targeted by your opponent's effects. I can imagine this being super annoying to deal with, and here's another thing about it. Usually, running an anti-soul combo like this would deny you a finishing game, but not only does Dragon Maid have some excellent secondary finishers that work without combos, but the event we salvaged also can do some damage. On play, you pitch a card and then reveal the climax that she combos with from your hand, then you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's level 0, you deal 3 damage to your opponent. If it's not, you deal 1 damage and then heal 1. You want to talk about utility? And keep in mind, Kana's Brainstormer top checks on play, along with some other cards in Dragon Maid that can make sure this event hits for whatever you want. So yeah, Kana red deck, looking really scary and annoying to fight. But enough about that, because there's plenty more to cover at 3. So let's move on from red to green and cover some good stuff. Green's got a few good utility level 3s in Dragon Maid, including a great secondary finisher. This Toru, on play, lets you draw 2 and pitch 1, and then on attack you can pitch 2 cards to Icy Tail 4. This is a stock-free Icy Tail, which, while 4 cards isn't a lot, is still an amazing secondary closer. But green also has 2 pretty decent primary finishers. If you want to make the 8-bar Fafnir deck, Fafnir has a level 3 that you can pay 3 and restand on reverse with combo, and when one of your characters triggers a bar climax, you can pay 1 and deal 1 damage. Keep in mind, if you have multiples of these out, you can activate this multiple times, so it's like restanding and burning all 1 card, which is nothing to sneeze at. Ilu's main finisher is also in green and deals a good amount of damage. When her climax is placed in the climax zone, you can pay 1 and she gets cancel burn X, where X is her soul. Also, free of the combo, when she attacks, you reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's a character, you'll deal 1 damage. So basically, you snipe a card off the top, and then come in for 2 attacks if one doesn't stick. There are some other finishers like this, and they're absolutely brutal to survive. So definitely a solid choice for the top end of most any deck. But again, we need to move forward and get into the blue stuff. Now, Elma actually has her own early play in blue, which is a 4 or more early play healer that gets +1k for each character in your opponent's back row, meaning that she sits at 10-5 across turns. Her finisher isn't terribly notable outside her blue meme deck event combo. It gives you some stock, heals, and deals 1 damage on attack. Ketz, on the other hand, has a pretty brutal finisher. She heals, and when her battle opponent becomes reversed, you can pay 2 and pitch 1. If you do, look at up to 5 cards in the bottom of your opponent's deck, choose up to 2 climaxes among them, put them in their clock, and put the rest in the waiting room. So this is like a Drago Buster Icy Tail. And keep in mind, you can summon her with the level assisting Shota, so she has the power to get those reverses. If your opponent is compressed, this Lukello will like straight up end their life. Speaking of ending your opponent's life though, we need to move into yellow. Now before we go into the finishers, there's actually a cool early play to cover. Toru and Kobayashi, Bridge Between Humans and Dragons, is a 4 or more early play that gets +1k if you're playing the game. On play, you can resonate with the Kobayashi Brainstormer to perform one of the following 2 effects on play, either heal 1 or deal 1. So yes, you do need to resonate for the effect, but it's pretty flexible. You never know when you might want that extra damage, especially if you hit level 2 and don't have any cards to heal and want to press the attack. It's a really cool option. Another really cool option is Kana, Kimono in return. During the turn she's played, you can have all players put all characters except this one into their waiting room, and she gets cancel burn 3. She also has on attack ditch 2 burn 1. Now, while this does cost you some attackers, it's a 1 card option to get rid of a stage full of stuff you don't want to attack into, unless they have hand on core, like Kana. Still though, very funny card. But if we want to talk about closing the game, we need to move on to Toru, Perfect Maid. On play heal, and if you have the choice climax in your zone, you can either deal 1 damage on attack, or pay 2 and pitch 1 and declare a number that isn't negative and deal X damage where X is the number you declared. And yes, this does mean that if your opponent is out 8 climaxes and has like 10 cards or so left in their deck, you can just declare 10 and kill them. Alternatively, you could declare X where X is equal to the cards on top of your opponent's deck that aren't climaxes, which, because that number can never be negative, is technically legal. It's also uncancelable, as the moment they flip a climax, that's too much damage. I encourage everyone to go to sanctioned tournaments and try this, and then when your opponent calls a judge on you to explain that this is obviously not how the card works, appeal to the head judge, and then get kicked out of the tournament for being an assbag. Dumb ideas aside, people say that finishers that allow you to control your damage are good because you can play to your opponent's deck state, and I can't really think of a better way to control your damage than just saying what you want to deal, and not even having to pay if you want to only burn 1. Don't get caught with your pants down in front of Toru, because she will absolutely castrate you. Anyway, this is where I'm going to wrap this one up. Dragon Maid is a banger of a set. Cool art, great abilities, and really interesting and potentially powerful combos. Don't let the haters influence you, players. They all said it wouldn't come to English, and lo and behold, here we are. Those same people also say that this set doesn't do anything and won't be too notable in the meta because it wasn't in JP. But it's time to give all those JP meta deckers what for and show them just how powerful dragons are when it comes time to throw down. Get out there and breathe some fire. And as always, thanks for watching. Peace.